money because it's going to be much cheaper to get subscribers now than it will be in a year, because there'll be a lot more competition. And the more subscribers, the more of an asset you have to be taken over by a bigger corporation for a buyout. And they said to me, and I quote, "The internet was a fad and it's over." And so that day I wrote my resignation letter and I cashed in all my stock, and I started another company, which we took on NASDAQ, which was called Megachain. And what that was we came up with a concept of multi-level marketing in the cloud. So in other words, I send you an email and say, "Don, if you use this code, you'll get 50% off on Nike runners. And if you don't want Nike runners, send it to your entire email list. And anyone that buys it with your code, you'll get a piece of the action and I'll get a piece of your action. And it'll go down 10 levels." And so all of a sudden, everybody in the world gets the internet email on Nike runners.
Yeah.
And we actually developed the software to track that all. And then I put that on NASDAQ, and then we took that to the London Exchange in Great Britain and opened up an office there right at the time of the dot-com collapse. So I did an RTO to a biotech company and got all my investors out at a good buck. And at that point, I decided I didn't really like public companies anymore, because I saw the greed factor got to me. And I left public company operation. But I left with some money in hand, which was nice. And then I started Pacific Audiovisual Institute in 2000, which was a school that I wrote 5 one-year programs for, including audio production and engineering and independent filmmaking, and a course in computer animation, graphic design, that sort of thing. And I ran that for 15 years and sold that in 2015. Because I want to spend more time with my kids. But all through those other business ventures, I continued to tour. We were always playing 40, 50 shows a year.
Wow.
So that was fun. I mean, it's just something else to do.
What an exciting journey.
Oh, yeah, it's been neat. It's been very fun. I met a lot of people.
I'm really grateful that you shared that, because it's such a fun journey. Thinking that the iPhone came out in 2008, and you were way out in front of that, at the same time as dial-up.
It was sort of funny, because I was into tennis a lot, and I joined Vancouver Lawn Tennis. And, there was the science of industry there. I'd be in the locker room and say, "Oh, you have email?" And they go, "What's email?" And I say, "Well, do you have a website?" And they say, "Well, what's the website?" I remember going to Dairyland or Macmillan Bloedel and saying, I'd like to put you on the web and give you a website. And they didn't know what it was. It was very early years. It moved fast, though, once it did. The minute I saw it, I thought, man, this is Gutenberg on steroids.
Yeah, it was.
It was big.
Yeah, no question. So you've probably been asked this question a dozen times, maybe hundreds of times. What was it like to win a Juno? There's so much said about Canadian music and Canadian content. I'm wondering what that felt like.
Well, what was that first one? Best New Band or something?
Yeah.
And that was like, I remember being backstage, and somebody had told, and I'd written a tune called "Boppin' with the Blues," which had hit the radio just previous to that Juno. And somebody there, I have no idea who, said, "Oh, I heard Ronnie Hawkins is going to do a cover version of "Boppin' with the Blues." And I knew who Ronnie Hawkins was. He was sort of like a hero to me, right?
Yeah,
And then I looked over, and he was standing in the wings, not very far from me. And I came over to him and I said, "Oh, Mr. Hawkins," I said, "I'm Tom Lavin from Powder Blues, and I wrote Boppin' with the Blues, and somebody just told me that you were going to do a cover version of it." And he said to me, he looked at me and he said, "I do them all, son. I do them all." That was a funny way to have your bubble popped.
Yeah.
I know a number of stories about Ronnie firsthand that I can't.
Yeah, I've got a couple, and he is certainly, colorful.
Yeah.
So did it change your life winning the Juno? Did anything magical happen?
I got a laugh, actually, and it was completely unplanned. I had no idea what I was going to say. And again, I was a naive guy. Anyone else would have thought, gee, you're going to have to accept a Juno and say something and prepare some remarks. And of course, I didn't. I was just always flying by the seat of my pants. And they said, oh, best new band, come up and get your Juno. And I walked up the microphone and said, because we had decided, I told the record company that my goal was to get signed in the US and not be signed through a Canadian record company, US, because you get half the royalties. I want a US record deal. And we were already platinum or double platinum or something. And I thought maybe I had the clout to try and do that. And RCA couldn't do that for me. RCA America didn't want us. And Capitol stepped up to the plate and said, all right, we'll sign you for Capitol in Canada and EMI in the States. And so you can have a US record deal. Little did I know that under the table, they'd said, don't bother with them in the States. We just want them for Canada.
Right.
Sign them and forget them. But I was naive. And so I went to the microphone, I got the June, I said, I'd like to thank RCA for all the hard work that they've done and on our behalf. And I'd like to thank Capitol Records for all the hard work they've promised to do in the future, or something like that. And it got a laugh.
Well said for all the stories you hear about record companies and the funny deals that they've done with so many bands and so many artists. We're speaking with Tom Lavin of the Powdered Blues Band, and I'm curious, 44 years. So what are we going to see on the 15th at the Rio?
Well, man, I hope you'll see me. I wake up every morning and think, my goodness, I'm here again.
Yeah.
So I hope that keeps going on for a while, and you'll see, the veterans. I think that every guy on stage has been with me over 30 years. Bill Rungy there, he's been with me 41. He's probably the longest. We have members that are no longer with us, shall we say, sad as that may be. But you and I are at that age where we have to live through that if we want to continue to live. I try to do, as many of the well-known songs as I can, because otherwise people feel gypped. But I also really try and do stuff that's wide open so that everybody on stage gets to improvise and gets to be themselves. So that's something that to me never gets stale and hopefully keeps freshness in the act. You'll see the old guys playing the old songs in a new way.
So what haven't we talked about that we should? Any words of wisdom? Any stories?
There's all kinds of things that come to mind. I remember John Lee Hooker was a big fan, and he used to come on stage with us often. If he was in town, we were in town, he got done with the show, he'd always come on and we have to go do and he'd come on and stutter. But when we moved down to Hollywood for the EMI release, that would have been January 83, when they were for about 6 months. And coming back up the coast, we had played the Keystone, which was there were two Keystones. There was one in Berkeley and one in San Francisco, and we played them both. And John Lee was there both times. You know who was at the Keystone in San Francisco that time too, was a rather thread-worn Sly Stone, still wearing a glitter suit and platforms and out of his mind on blow. And we wound up getting on tour with him, and he never played because he'd be in
Never showed.
freebasing and never get to the stage.
Never showed up. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, on that trip back up to Vancouver, John Lee Hooker said, well, come to my house in San Bruno, and I'll make you fried chicken. And it was a warm day in May, and he had circulation problems and was wearing a fur coat with a lamb's wool collar and a hat. And then he had a cook's apron over that. And he had huge cast iron pans, and he was cooking fried chicken himself. He had help, and I had put 100 beers on ice, and we had a big barbecue for the whole band and the road crew at John Lee's house. He was celebrating because he'd just gotten himself a lawyer and sued the Stones for some of his stuff. And the first thing he did was go out and buy a gold Mercedes SL.
Wow.
look good in it too. But I mean, you have all kinds of memories, like crazy, crazy stuff, good and bad.
So, any advice for young songwriters or musicians?
Man, I'm nobody to give anybody advice, particularly when it comes to songwriting. I know that I've written a good song where it's so personal that it embarrasses me a little bit, and I feel naked in public, and that you sort of have to dig deep to get the gumption to even perform it or sing it, because you're talking about something that's honest, even if it's couched in metaphoric term.
Yeah.
So I say try to be naked enough to embarrass. I think in terms of musicianship, I never practiced the guitar ever. It was sort of like being a stand-up comic without having a routine. I didn't want to fall into the category of ripping off fast licks. I wanted to use my guitar to emote and to actually be a second voice. So I sing my solos, and I still do. And a lot of the people that I so admire over the years, like particularly I got into piano late in life, but listening to Errol Garner or listening to Mose Allison, when they're playing, you hear them grunting away. And what they're really doing is singing all the notes that are going through their fingers. So I think when it comes to instrumentals, I was given that advice, and it was good advice. Sing your solos. Don't play stuff that you don't hear. And all the musicians that are my favorites are the ones that do that.
That's great advice for life.
Yeah, you gotta really get in touch with yourself to catharsis is a great thing, and you can't evoke that in people unless you're evoking it in yourself. It's like hypnosis. I used to think as a kid, well, hypnosis was like a flashlight. You turn the flashlight out and shine it on somebody, and they'd be hypnotized if you knew how to do it. But it's not like that at all. It's really the hypnotist has to achieve trance in himself. He has to put himself into a very, very deep, profound space. It's almost like sitting down cross-legged and building a little warm campfire. And then you look at the person that you want to have profound communication with and say, come on, sit down here with me. The fire's warm, and look in my eyes and join me where I am.
Yeah.
So hypnotize somebody, you have to be hypnotized yourself first, I think. And I think music is a lot like that too, particularly the blues. It's hypnotic because it's repetitive, and it's profound because when it's done right, it conveys emotion from the deepest level, from your center. And if it doesn't, it's like it's the easiest thing to play badly. It's difficult to play it well. It's like violin.
Yeah. Is there a book coming?
No, I don't think so. Maybe people have told me I should write. I'm not sure I've got the self-discipline to sit down and spit it out. Some people think they'd like to read it. I'm not sure they would. We'll see. Let's leave the door open on that one.
Okay. No, I'm just curious. There's so many stories and a fascinating journey. It might be worth considering.
Well, down the road, let's keep that door open.
Okay.
Thank you for poking me on that.
I'll be sure to poke you frequently. Listen, I really want to thank you for taking time to hang out.
Hey, the pleasure is all mine, Don, and my door's always open. You just come over during a weekday when the kids are in school, and we can have some brunch and carry on the conversation. Love to see you in person.
And likewise, and come over to Bowen.
Well, I might just do that as the occasion presents itself.
Thanks, Tom, for your generosity. I've loved our conversation and our catch up. My apologies for the Zoom issues. And I really want to thank you for helping Co-op Radio. What you and the band are doing is incredibly important to help us keep the lights on and keep on keeping on. So all the best. Have a great show, and heartfelt thanks. So I will talk to you soon. I'll reach out.
I'm looking forward to it. See you later.
All right. Thanks, Tom.
Good.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Good.
We've been talking with Tom Lavin about life, books, kids, music, and a bunch of things. And I am so grateful to have the opportunity to catch up with Tom. Don't forget that Tom Lavin and the Powder Blues Band are playing the Rio Theater as a fundraiser for Co-op Radio. May 15th, Rio Theater. Tickets available at riotickets.ca. That's another edition of the Conversation Lab. This radio program and podcast is produced by CFRO FM in Vancouver.